Are you still on that little salary? I mean, you never talk about money because there's nothing to say, right? And in that moment, I knew. Either I stayed silent like I always had, or I finally told the story they never thought I'd dare to speak. The subject line blinked in my inbox like a warning light on a dashboard. I stared at it for a few seconds, debating whether to open it or delete it like the others. My cursor hovered over the trash icon. Then I clicked. It was from Mom, of course. Sent to the entire Moore family group. Elaine never missed a chance to act like we were a tight-knit, tradition-loving unit, when in reality we were a photo op stitched together with guilt and appearances. I scrolled past her opening line. So grateful for all of you. And landed on the real reason. A formal invitation to Thanksgiving dinner hosted at the house in Scottsdale. Mandatory attendance, underlined. She even added, "Please bring relevant documents if you'd like to be included in the estate conversation." I froze. Estate? I hadn't heard a single word about that. No illness, no will talk, nothing. The last time we discussed family finances, I'd suggested we hire a third-party accountant. Courtney called me a control freak. Mom cried, and Dad poured himself a second bourbon. The cursor blinked at me. I was supposed to send my RSVP. Instead, I opened the spreadsheet I'd been updating. Rental income for the duplex in Tempe. I logged the final rent payment for the month. Fully leased again. Another quiet win. A knock at my door snapped me out of the screen. Alec stood there, sleeves rolled, laptop under one arm. "Still working?" he asked, stepping into my apartment with practiced familiarity. "Still breathing," I said, gesturing toward the cluttered table. "Coffee?" He nodded. "Your emails look intense." "It's from my mother. So yes." He laughed quietly, then opened his laptop while I poured 2 mugs. Alec had been helping me with tax projections. What started as a one-time favor had turned into an unofficial monthly ritual. "I ran the quarterly checks you asked for," he said, "but something odd came up on your credit report." I paused mid-sip. "What kind of odd?" He turned the screen toward me. "A business loan. $120,000. 2 years ago. Co-signed by Rachel Moore." I blinked. "That's not possible." "It's very possible," he said, "because it exists, and your name is on it." "No," I said slowly. "Courtney asked me to co-sign something a few years ago. For her boutique." I said no, absolutely no. "Did you ever fill anything out? Sign a draft? Email a scan?" I sifted through the memory. I had started a form, under pressure. I'd typed some things in, then backed out. I might have sent a PDF with the top section filled, but I didn't sign it. Alec tapped a few keys. "Digital signature timestamp doesn't match your activity log, and it's off by a few bytes. Someone altered it." My blood ran cold. "They used it to push the application through?" I asked. "Most likely. And since you never disputed it, it's stuck." My jaw clenched. That explains the debt flag I saw on my score last year. I thought it was a mistake. "It wasn't," Alec said. "It was Courtney." Of course it was. I looked back at the email. "Let's talk as a family." What they meant was, "Let's trap you politely. Let's make sure you won't make noise in front of witnesses." "Anything else I should know?" I asked, already bracing. Alec nodded. "The boutique was dissolved this summer. The loan's in default. If the bank comes for the cosigner, it's coming for you." It wasn't the betrayal that made my chest hurt. It was the predictability. Of course she used me. Of course Mom and Dad let it happen. I was the responsible one. The one who handled things. Quietly. Neatly. Legally. "Want to respond to the email?" Alec asked, his tone dry. I closed my laptop with a soft click. Thanksgiving dinner is going to be interesting. Courtney opened the door wearing a Gucci sweater and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Wow," she said, stepping back to let me in, her eyes flicking down to my shoes. "You made it." The entryway smelled of cinnamon, expensive candles, and subtle disapproval. The Moore house hadn't changed. Same curated autumn decor, same gleaming marble floors that no one was allowed to step on with shoes. But I kept mine on. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said, setting the pie I brought on the credenza. It was store-bought. I didn't pretend otherwise. "Oh, you didn't have to bring anything," she cooed, leading me through the foyer toward the dining room. "You're always so minimal." There it was, the first jab, wrapped in lace. The dining room glowed in amber tones. Crystal glasses, white linen napkins folded like doves, and place cards printed in gold calligraphy. Mine was at the far end, next to Aunt Diane and across from the ficus plant. Elaine floated in, wearing pearls and performative warmth. "Rachel, sweetheart. So glad you came." She air-kissed my cheek but didn't touch me. Richard gave me a nod from his chair at the head of the table, where he was already nursing a scotch. Courtney circled back, pulling out her phone mid-step. "Sorry, my assistant is texting. I might have to step out during dinner. Things are just wild with the boutique's second location." Aunt Diane beamed. "Another location? That's wonderful." "It's going really well," Courtney said, sliding into her seat with a flourish. "I just hired a PR firm. You have to, once you scale. You wouldn't believe how much media costs." I said nothing. The last public mention of her boutique was a quiet, permanently closed update on Yelp. We passed the side dishes, sweet potatoes with bruleed tops, stuffing shaped like stars. Courtney took the opportunity to comment on how carbs were so last decade, while piling on turkey like it was going out of style. Elaine turned to me. "Still living in that apartment, Rachel? No car upgrades?" "Still living smart," I replied, sipping water. "And still driving the same car, yes?" Courtney chuckled, loud enough for the room to hear. "You know what they say. If your lifestyle doesn't reflect your bank account, are you even earning?" A few cousins giggled, the kind of laughter that clung to power, not humor. "I'm just saying," she added, adjusting her napkin like a tiara. "Some of us talk about our work because we have something to say." Aunt Diane leaned in. "What do you do again, Rachel? Something with spreadsheets?" Courtney didn't wait. "She's in finance, technically. She's very quiet about it, though. I always figured it was humble. Or maybe there's just not much to report." Richard gave a dry laugh. "Well, not everyone's a businesswoman like you, Courtney." The roast carrots on my plate blurred. For a moment, I remembered 5 years ago when Courtney told our aunt I'd probably retire managing self-storage units. Everyone had laughed. I'd smiled and swallowed it. But I wasn't here to swallow anything tonight. I set down my fork. Carefully, deliberately. The room didn't go quiet, but something in the air shifted. I reached down and lifted the black folder from my tote bag, flipping it open with a calm that didn't quite match my heartbeat. "Since we're sharing finances," I said. Elaine blinked. "Rachel?" I slid the folder across the table, bypassing the mashed potatoes and Courtney's curated chaos. "Here's what I made last quarter, from my rentals." The silence was beautiful. The kind of silence that followed a gunshot in polite company. No one touched the papers. Courtney's smile had collapsed somewhere between page 2 and 3. Her fork was frozen midair. The spreadsheet I had printed in crisp monochrome rows gleamed under the chandelier's light. 5 properties. 3 held under LLCs. Net passive income from the past quarter, $82,430.12. "Is this real?" Aunt Diane whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Courtney glanced at Elaine, searching for rescue. Elaine, to her credit, tried. "Sweetheart, this isn't the time for one-upmanship." I leaned back in my chair, voice steady. "It's not. It's the time for facts." Richard cleared his throat. "You've been doing well, then." "I have." I looked straight at Courtney. I just don't measure doing well in handbags and social media impressions. A plate clinked in the kitchen. Someone was pretending to wash dishes. Half the room had vanished into distraction, but the important ones, the ones who orchestrated this, were still here and cornered. I stood up and collected the folder, tucking it back into my tote. Then I took out my phone and tapped Alec's name. The line clicked. Rachel? You're on speaker? I said. Go ahead. Alec's voice carried clean and cool through the quiet room. All right. I reviewed the documents. Rachel's name appears as co-signer on a $120,000 small business loan taken out in 2022. That loan defaulted last quarter. The signature was digital, but metadata shows inconsistencies. Also, she was provably out of state the day the loan was submitted. Elaine's hand flew to her chest. Rachel, please, don't drag this out. We just needed a leg up. No, Mom, I said. You needed a scapegoat. Courtney's voice finally snapped. You always act so above it all. You think being quiet makes you better? Maybe this is your little revenge moment. I didn't flinch. Revenge would have been letting the bank come for you first. She's your sister, Elaine said, eyes brimming now. We just needed help. We knew you could handle it. I looked at her, my voice dropping just enough to hurt. So you stole from me because you believed I'd clean it up? That's not help. That's abuse. Elaine's face twisted like I'd slapped her. Richard stood then, puffing himself up. Now hold on. Let's not use language like that. What language would you prefer, Dad? I asked. Fraud? Identity theft? That's what this is. Alec's voice chimed in. She's not wrong. It qualifies under federal statutes. Courtney stood up, shoving her chair back. You know what? You're insufferable. You've always had this superiority complex. We were struggling. You were shopping, I said coldly. I was working 2 jobs to buy my first duplex while you were finding yourself in Bali. That hit. I saw it. The flicker. Elaine stepped forward. You wouldn't actually go to the authorities. We're family. Family protects each other, I said. You didn't protect me. You used me. Quietly. Repeatedly. You counted on me not saying a word. Courtney scoffed. So now what? You're going to turn this into some big court drama? No, I said, turning back to my phone. I'm going to do what I should have done the moment I found out. I looked at Alec. My hands were steady. Send the file. Let's open the IRS report. Courtney was still yelling when Alec's voice cut through. Rachel, you may want to record this. I tapped the button on my phone. A small red dot pulsed in the corner of the screen. The screaming stopped mid-sentence as Alec's voice took center stage, crisp and surgical through the speaker. I've just sent over the metadata report, he said. Digital signature was forged. Timestamp doesn't match Rachel's IP address history, and the cryptographic hash has been altered. Whoever did this, they used a dummy overlay on an old PDF Courtney's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Elaine looked like she'd swallowed battery acid. I also attached Rachel's travel records, Alec continued. Plane tickets, hotel logins, receipts. She was in Portland during the signing window. Legally airtight alibi. The phone dinged. I opened the file and handed it to Elaine without saying a word. Her hand trembled as she flipped through it. She didn't need to read it. She knew. I looked at Courtney, who was blinking too fast, like if she did it long enough she could reset the room. You weren't supposed to dig, she said finally. You were supposed to… Let it go? I offered. Like I always do? Elaine's voice cracked, but it was clear this time, no longer wrapped in maternal softness. We didn't think it'd matter. You weren't using your credit anyway. That landed harder than she realized, and maybe harder than she meant. You saw an open lane and decided to drive through, I said. Without asking, without even warning me. Richard spoke for the first time, his voice low. Maybe this can still be sorted out. I turned toward him. How? With what? You let a fraudulent loan be pinned to my name. You let your daughter destroy my credit while telling the rest of the family I was just quiet. Boring. Poor. Elaine dropped the papers and stepped closer. We didn't steal from you. We borrowed. We always knew we'd fix it. No, I said. You knew I would. Alec's voice returned, calm and lethal. Legally speaking, Rachel has grounds for felony charges: federal bank fraud, identity theft, misuse of personally identifiable information. Courtney paled. You wouldn't do that. We're family. My hand tightened around the phone, but my voice stayed level. You stopped being family when you turned my name into your safety net. Courtney staggered back like I'd struck her. Elaine's mouth opened and closed, hunting for a phrase that would rewind the tape. But there wasn't one. For the first time since walking into this house, I felt tall. You'll ruin everything, Elaine whispered, eyes glassy. No, I said, voice like glass. You already did. The IRS portal loaded faster than I expected. No turning back now. The cursor blinked in the top right corner of the screen, waiting for me to complete the final step. I hovered over the submit button without clicking. Not yet. 2 days had passed since dinner imploded, since the silence turned into shouting and the shouting turned into evidence. I hadn't heard from anyone directly. No phone calls, no apologies, but the messages were constant. Courtney had sent 11 texts. Most were unhinged. One had all caps and ended with a skull emoji. Elaine's came in voicemail form. Her voice was slower than usual. Not sad, but worn thin. We were desperate, Rachel. Don't do this to us. You don't understand what your sister's been through. I did. That was the problem. I didn't reply. I didn't save the voicemail either. I deleted it as Alec's voice came through the speaker. Okay, he said. Double-check the PDF attachments. You've got the loan file, signature comparison, your travel itinerary, tax records, and the income breakdown, right? All there, I said. Good. Upload them to both portals, the IRS and the Arizona Fraud Division. Bank complaint comes after. I opened the file browser, dragging and dropping each document into the upload queue. Each one felt like a small stone hitting still water. My 25th birthday flashed in my head. Me sitting on the floor of my studio apartment, wiring my first down payment while Courtney posted bikini pictures from Cabo. I'd stayed up all night to sign closing papers. She had posted a margarita boomerang captioned, "Recharge before you build an empire." I clicked through the next few forms, entering my identifying details. Each field filled without friction, without resistance, because the facts were mine, my truth. They just hadn't expected me to use it. Alec's voice was calm, but I could hear the satisfaction in it. Most people wouldn't have caught this until it was too late. I almost didn't, I said, refreshing the bank dashboard. I thought I was being paranoid. No, he said. You were being quiet. That's not the same thing. My email pinged. Garrett, subject line. Speak at FinFuture? Rachel, your story is what young professionals need. Real protection, real consequences. We'll cover your travel, of course. Just say yes. I stared at the message. Another ping. Courtney again. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed the one good thing Mom and I had left. I minimized the window. Opened the IRS page again. Everything was ready. All it took now was one click. You sure you want to do this? Alec asked. I didn't answer immediately. Then I moved the mouse slowly but without hesitation and clicked. The page refreshed. Your report has been received. Case number 1147-AZ-F. I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Alec didn't say anything for a second. Then, they'll be contacted within a week. You might want to prepare for headlines. Let them talk, I said, closing the laptop. I'm done being quiet. The newspaper headline said, Boutique owner under IRS investigation. But it was the subhead that hit harder. Co-signed loan forged by family. I folded the paper and slid it into my bag. I hadn't picked it up for myself. I'd grabbed a copy for Alec. He said he wanted it for records. But even holding it felt surreal. like watching someone else's downfall from across the room. Only the name at the center used to share your toothbrush as a child. The lobby outside the Summit Ballroom hummed with quiet networking. Young professionals in blazers balancing tiny lattes and branded notebooks. Scottsdale's financial literacy conference was in full swing. I walked past a glossy poster with my name on it, spelled correctly for once, and stepped onto the stage. Alec gave me a subtle nod from the side row. Garrett stood behind the AV table, adjusting something on the soundboard. I swallowed the nerves down like medicine and took my place behind the podium. "Thank you for being here," I began, eyes scanning the small crowd. I told them about credit reports, about how you can check them every year for free, about paper trails, metadata, signature overlays, and then I told them something harder. That the people who hurt you financially are not always strangers, I said. Sometimes they're the ones who put your name in their phone as emergency contact. The room was still. A few heads nodded. Someone wiped her cheek. "You don't have to wait until they break something big to fight back," I said. "You can stop at the moment they take one thing, however small, without asking." The applause wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It was steady, honest. Alec met me at the side of the stage with a coffee and a smirk. "You gave them permission to stand up." I smiled back. Someone gave it to me first. He didn't say more. He didn't need to. My phone buzzed as we walked out. A text from an unknown number. I didn't have to open it to know who it was. "You'll regret this. Blood is thicker." I blocked the number without hesitation. Courtney hadn't messaged in days, but I'd received a court update that morning. She'd been summoned. I wouldn't be attending. It wasn't my trial. It never was. Outside, the sky was a warm, dusty orange, the kind that reminded you the desert could be beautiful if you stopped trying to conquer it. A reporter stood near the curb, a microphone half hidden by a scarf. She stepped toward me gently as if she knew not to push. "Ms. Moore," she said, "if your family asked for forgiveness, what would you say?" I met her eyes without blinking. "They didn't ask for forgiveness," I said. "They asked for silence." I finally said no. She lowered the mic, quietly. No follow-up, no soundbite needed. Alec opened the car door. "You ready to go home?" I paused, watching the last light spill across the pavement. "No," I said. "I'm ready to build one." They once called her the quiet one. Easy to overlook, easier to use. But silence, it turns out, was never surrender. It was strategy. When truth is ignored and trust exploited, justice becomes a matter of timing, not possibility. And when it finally arrives, it doesn't knock. It dismantles. Rachel didn't just walk away from betrayal. She rebuilt her life on its ruins, brick by brick, deed by deed. Because no wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth.